The pathologist at the Forensic Science Center has walked off the job, leaving family members of those killed over the weekend to ask what's going on. Pathologist Valerie Alexandrov stormed out the St. James building this morning. The mother of 26-year-old Akil Eugene, who was killed at around 8:30 p.m. on Friday in Morva, told us what took place.
The patient knows that he can't work under these conditions anymore because it's just he alone presently now, and it's so much he could do. As he said, it's like a snowball that more and more bodies will keep coming. So I'm asking the authority of Trinidad and Tobago to send help for the nation, not only for the doctor.
The other four killed over the weekend are 4-year-old Marvin Peters, Anthony Lala, 26, 23-year-old Eddie Farrell, and 29-year-old Sean Joseph. In other news, a husband and wife are in critical condition after they were allegedly beaten by a close male relative. Reports say at around 7:30 p.m. yesterday, Roy Sitaram, a 61-year-old taxi driver, and his wife Merle Sitaram, also 61, were at their Aripo home when they had an argument with the male relative. The man is reported to have beaten the couple on their head and about the body. They were both rushed to the San Fernando General Hospital where they had to undergo emergency surgery. Police have since detained the male relative. And the Foreign Affairs Ministry is liaising with Interpol and Turkish authorities to determine the fate of 9 Trinidad and Tobago Muslim nationals detained in Ankara after being accused of traveling on to Syria to join the ISIS terrorist group. According to sources within the ministry, the exact nature and status of the group are not known. But CNews Live has been told officials have been working around the clock since the story broke on Monday. The 9 were stopped sometime between Sunday and Monday at the airport, where they were detained by Turkish police. Questions, though, have been raised as to whether they can or will be deported, or whether, under Turkish law, they could be facing the courts there, since they allegedly attempted to use the country as a crossing point to join a terrorist organization. In a response to the report that 9 citizens of this country were detained in southern Turkey on their way to join a terrorist group in Syria, head of the Islamic Front of Trinidad and Tobago, Umar Abdullah, echoed the call made by Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi to be careful not to cast judgment before all information is obtained. He also said citizens detained in Venezuela were not connected to the men in Turkey.
Perception in the minds of people, in the general population, that somehow or the other, because of allegations which were laid before on our brothers, that allegation of terrorism, we often would want to mix up these different ideas and place these 5 nationals in the same bracket as regards to, the
Detained TNT national Dominic Pitilal Siddiqa Mohammed said not all members of the Islamic faith take part in the terrorist acts.
Every Muslim doesn't support ISIS. Every Muslim is not terrorist.
I agree.
We are here in support for our 5 nationals in Venezuela, not Turkey, not Syria, nowhere else in the world.
Right.
2 years, 4 months.
Right.
And criminologist Professor Ramesh Deosaran says Trinidad and Tobago must pay attention to its international reputation. And those in charge must look at this issue carefully as the acting commissioner of police goes on vacation. He was referring to reports which suggest that 9 Trinidadians were held in Turkey as they attempted to join Islamic State.
Between the education system and the production of these young criminals all over the place, many of them now so vulnerable, you could tantalize them with a trip to Syria to join ISIS. It's very easy to do that now. If they're not in gangs and drug trafficking, they're now moving abroad. And we are becoming very famous in that respect. We're already famous in drug shipment in terms of having drugs in cans and so on. So this country has to look at its international reputation as well.
Professor Deosaran said the Ministry of Education must also pay attention to the youth at all levels of the education system, as there can be a link with education and the production of criminal elements.
Mr. Garcia, Minister of Education, to really look at the connection between some of these secondary schools' output and the crime, the youth crime that flows from them for different reasons, because it can be helped. We can stop it. but you need a very serious one analysis, and you need to build consensus and stop. I always say the old-time politics must stop. You have to have consensus building politics.
Supporters of the 5 Trinidad and Tobago nationals being detained in Venezuela since March 2014 staged a protest this morning calling for an update on discussions between the TNT government and Venezuelan leaders on repatriation of people detained in each country on immigration issues. In front of the Venezuelan Embassy in Port of Spain, the group headed by Islamic Front leader Umar Abdullah said the charges of terrorism suspicions against the 5 men were dropped, but replaced with charges concerning intent to commit espionage and commit a crime. He said only government officials would be able to provide answers to the families of the men detained.
We understand that to mean that there was an arrangement where prisoners from both countries would be repatriated back to their country, reunited with their families without any conditions. And we are asking the government again to explain to us exactly what were those agreements all about. What was that pronouncement that alluded to the fact that our nationals were going to come home.
In other news, the All Trinidad General Workers Trade Union has sought to explain statements made in the public about its recent eviction of the United National Congress from Rienzi Complex. The party, which was housed there for 29 years, was asked to move at the end of July. Today, the union has explained that the UNC was not asked to move because it failed to pay the rent, as has been stated by some. The ATGWTU, in a statement, said the UNC does not owe the union any money for the use of the property. It went on to ask UNC Senator Khadija Amin to refrain from making what it called unsubstantiated and unmerited claims against them, and for her to conduct due diligence and ascertain the facts before making statements in public. And here's a brief look at what's taking place around the region.
Barbados' renewable energy sector has the largest growth potential for the islands, with the potential to generate hundreds of millions of dollars for the economy. So says the head of the Deltro Group, an international company that specializes in solar, wind and hydroelectric power. The company hopes jobs will be created as a result of renewable energy expansion plans, which will also boost foreign exchange. Deltro said they also hope to introduce Barbados' first electric cars. St. Lucia's government has signed an agreement to build the island's first specifically targeted tourist hotel, which will seek to attract Chinese, Russian and southeastern visitors. The country's government said the 700-acre Pearl of the Caribbean will cost $2.6 billion and feature a casino, horse racing track, resort and shopping mall complex, free trade zone, entertainment and housing. The aim of the project is to attract newly wealthy investors who are seeking opportunities for their money. Health officials in Grenada are stepping up their response to manage and control of what appears to be an increase in the number of gastroenteritis cases in some parts of the island. Local health said the increase warranted officials taking necessary precautionary measures. No determination has yet been made for the rise in the number of cases, and Grenadian authorities are urging the public and international travelers not to panic. The Met Service has advised a tropical storm warning remains in effect for Jamaica as a strong tropical wave makes its way across the island. This means that tropical storm conditions, including possible sustained wind speeds of 63 to 118 kilometers per hour, are still expected. The Met Service said at 4 a.m., satellite imagery showed a large area of disturbed weather associated with a tropical wave, centered approximately 130 kilometers south of Kingston, Jamaica, and covering most of the island to the north. Movement appeared to be near 20 kilometers per hour towards the west.
C News is live at noon. Now we have sports with Rishi Harinanan. Good afternoon, Rishi. Tell us what's happening in the world of sport.
Well, thank you, Karen. Wet conditions have delayed the start of the fourth day of the second test match between West Indies and India in Jamaica. Now, the regional team has to get over 304 runs in order to have India bat again. Last evening, the Indians declared on 500 for 9 in their first innings in reply to the West Indies, who scored 196 all out. Ajinkya Rahane scored the second 100 of the match after Lokesh Rahul. Rostan Chase picked up 5 wickets for the regional team. And now play has started. Play started a short while ago in the West Indies' second innings. The score 6 for 1. Rajendra Chandraka, the batsman, out bowled by Ishant Sharma for 1. And India will play 2 T20 international matches against West Indies in Florida later this month. BCCI President Anurag Thakur announced on Thursday after the board's working committee meeting in Mumbai. The matches will be played on August 27th and 28th at Central Broward Regional Park Stadium in Lauderhill. Officials from both boards had meetings in Florida last week to discuss the staging of the matches at the conclusion of India's ongoing 4-test series in the Caribbean. The ability to obtain US visas was the primary logistical hurdle before the boards, but this was cleared after the BCCI submitted documents for its intended T20 squad to the US Embassy in Jamaica, where the second test is currently being played. In a press release issued by the board, Thakur stated that the series would be developed into an annual event in the United States. This is C News Live at noon. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter and on Facebook at C News Live, or log on to our website at ctvtt.com. Last Thursday, gymnast Thema Williams, through her attorneys, officially filed a claim against the Trinidad and Tobago Gymnastics Federation, seeking over $11 million in damages. But for officials to be held liable for their actions is a really big deal in the sporting world. This according to CEO and editor of Wired 868, Lisana Liebert.
If the conclusion, if the judge does rule in favor of Thema Williams, it'll certainly be groundbreaking for sport. That's something like this happens. Essentially, the case in itself is about, on Thema's side, the argument is that the officials didn't fulfill their responsibility to be fair to her and biased, and essentially they abused their power to send her alternate, Marissa Dick, to the Olympics instead of her.
With just a couple days left before the start of the Olympic Games, the gymnast will be wondering what could have been for her had she not gone through a well-documented denial of a chance to compete at the Games. Asked whether it would be possible for her to compete 4 years down the road, Mr. Liebert said it is possible for her to try again. But the 20-year-old gymnast has already given up so much just to represent her country.
Have the chance to go for this Olympics, because the training you would have for university gymnastics is different to international sport, you see. You would then be looking at her putting a scholarship on hold for another 4 years or so. You know, it'll be a huge ask of her to do. She'll be putting her life on hold again for that period of time.
Well, and that's a brief look at what's taking place in sport. We have a look at some international developments and then more news with Karen.
Venezuela's National Electoral Council, CNE, has announced its approval of the first step in an opposition campaign to recall President Nicolas Maduro. It is said the opposition had succeeded in gathering 1% of voter signatures in all 24 of Venezuela's states. The move is the first part of the opposition's push for an early end to President Maduro's term in office. In a further twist, the Supreme Court declared the parliament in contempt for swearing in 3 opposition delegates. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has suggested that the November election could be rigged. He told a rally in Columbus, Ohio, that he had heard more and more that the contest would be unfair. He offered no immediate evidence. At another event, he called Democratic rival Hillary Clinton the devil. Mr. Trump has come under fire from across the political divide for remarks he made about the parents of a U.S. Muslim soldier killed in action. Pope Francis has set up a special commission to study whether women will be allowed to become deacons in the Catholic Church. The issue has historically troubled the Church, with many opposing the appointment of females. The commission of 7 men and 6 women will study the issue and look into the historical role of women in the early years of the Church.
Time now for a look at the weather. For the period this afternoon and tonight, mostly sunny despite few afternoon showers, with the risk of a thunder shower favoring Trinidad. Tonight will be mostly clear. C News, powered by our team of journalists and producers across the Republic and the region, on television, radio and online. C News, your country, our job.